Naked and Ashamed Part 2. Last time we talked about naked and ashamed, we talked more about the private issues of asking tough questions. We said that sometimes all we have need of in life is to ask tougher questions. Not that they need to be hard questions, but that we need to ask tougher questions, answer them honestly, and then try to move on. In the next installment today, though, consider this. I think there's a disease that many of us suffer from, and so we shift our attention from the private to the public self. And when you're talking about the public self, the disease I'm talking about is something called PES, Public Embarrassment Syndrome. Now, Public Embarrassment Syndrome probably wouldn't be passed down to you from your uncle. It's not in your bloodline as far as I can tell. Matter of fact, I'm not sure I've ever heard of it until today. But Public Embarrassment Syndrome means that you immediately go into kind of an illness state. You are sick to your stomach whenever you're embarrassed. You cannot stand to be the object of ridicule. You can't stand it. I mean, it is something. It is the epitome of, I guess, the adverse lifestyle. It's something that you wouldn't want. You almost wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. But PES probably afflicts 90% of the people that I've ever been around in my life. Now, and it's not empirical studies. I'm just judging by what I know about people. How much time people take to cover up their blemishes, their flaws in the mirror. How much energy people put into trying to hide and how to create pretenses. And all of that has to do with externalities, outside stuff. How do I look on the outside? How big is the group I'm leading? How much money do I appear to have and all that stuff? What happens when you're found out? It's one thing to hide. It's another thing to be in that stage where you've actually been caught stealing, been caught saying things you shouldn't have been saying. They call it being caught dead to rights. What then? Public Embarrassment Syndrome, PES. When you come down with a case of PES, I find that there aren't any commercials from pharmaceutical companies marketing some fancy, glamorous drug that can actually treat the symptoms because, we don't always know what the symptoms of PES are. We know that reclusiveness is one of them. People who suffer from PES tend to hide when they're found out. They tend to look for ways to escape. I'm no different than you. You look for ways to get away from the thing that's causing you the pain. We call it medicating the pain, and we do that to cope so that we don't destroy ourselves, right? We all like to wake up in the morning and feel good about ourselves. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, we have trouble getting through the day. We find ourselves more lethargic. We're tired. We tend to procrastinate and not really get down to business. We stop dreaming. We stop thinking about things we could do in life. And, but anyway, bottom line is that this idea of being naked and ashamed has both a private part and a public part. And I think the public part of our ashamedness when it comes to confronting the truth of our lives is a mirage. It really is something that is kind of smoke and mirrors, and we're made to believe, and we listen to the voices that tell us that we're not all that we're cracked up to be, and we're afraid of that. I find that PES, people who suffer from public embarrassment syndrome, when they are embarrassed in public, one of the reasons they're embarrassed is because they fear that people will think less of them. They fear that they have let people down. They are apprehensive about trying some of the same things they used to do again because they think they're going to fail. But you know what? Quite honestly, there is one cure I've found for public embarrassment syndrome. Getting back up and trying to do something that you tried and failed at again. Doesn't matter if it's a sport. It doesn't matter if it's your job. When you're embarrassed in public, you have really one direction you can go from there, and that's up. But you got to make the choice. You got to make the decision to be vigilant about being free from public embarrassment syndrome and launch into a place of creativity again. You have to understand that even if everybody thinks that you're nothing, there's a great God that has created you, who thinks so much of you that he gave you the breath that you're breathing right now. And you can believe it or not believe it, but the fact remains there are people far worse off than you. And so today, wherever you are, naked and ashamed as you might be, afraid of the truth, afraid of what you think it means, you have to understand this, that while you might be suffering from public embarrassment syndrome, there's a truth that you can aspire to that has your name on it. And there's something for your life. There's something that you're supposed to do. Not that it's one singular divine destiny, but it certainly could be in a range of destiny. There could be a few things, several things, that will allow you to align your life with the truth. And when you seek it and find it, it brings a purpose like you've never known. So anyway, enough about that. Naked and ashamed, it's a process. The goal is to be naked and unashamed. That's what the scripture said about Adam and Eve when God first created them, that they were actually naked and they weren't ashamed because they weren't worried about who was looking at them. So I submit to you today to mind your own business, run the race that's the right race, but make sure you're running your race and not somebody else's. 6man.com, I'm out of here.